Don't Tell Mom I'm on Earth. A story by user RedundantFridge. Earth. From what I knew of the planet, it was a beautiful place of culture, with a history that makes flights of fancy appear sane. It is certainly bold to announce into the void that your people exist, to allow even the most tenebrous actors a look into a world that hasn't even left its system. In equal measure, individuals with better intentions have stored all the information sent through space into archives. Prior to what happened, one of my first glimpses into humanity was their yearning to see someone out in space aside from them. Even when I didn't understand what cultures were presented to me, or even some of the music, I appreciated it wholeheartedly. Instead of immersing myself in the cultures our galactic community had to offer, I dedicated my youth in organizing what the Earthlings had sent into space. It is due to the immense amount of signal exposure that clean translations were able to be established. My understanding of humanity may have been flawed, but my raw knowledge of their philosophy, development, and history is peerless. It is unfortunate that out of all the nations of the stars to invade Earth, my people fired the first shot. Without even consulting those who had in-depth knowledge of humans, hubris drove their will and overridden common sense. Only one silver lining existed from the invasion. It was much easier to obtain digital and physical copies of my interests. While I remained in detention on my own ship for my outbursts against the invasion, I had enough time to understand aspects and gaps of humanity that were outside my initial viewpoint. Films and books about alien invasions, or otherworldly entities in general, arguments about the validity of them winning such opposition, or the amount of times their own militaries became weaker for the plot to work. Sometimes they even contested the strange weaknesses certain aliens had that seemed too convenient. To humanity, their common sense of aliens coming to Earth maintained a perfection bias, the assumption that an invading force would just glass a planet from the beginning. If outside entities that came halfway across the galaxy ended up on their front door, it would be a slaughter. The strange phenomenon of believing all of our stuff works without issues and is top of the line, or we won't be at the mercy of an out-of-touch politician sitting in an air-conditioned office. They placed too much credit upon the rest of the galaxy. What they considered dumb or contrived were actually completely valid, and even lessons I learned about in officers' school and out in the field. As long as something breathes, it can bleed. If it can think, it has beliefs. If there are more than two things, they will have differences. If it was made by mortal hands, it can be undone all the same. My people on all levels and echelons of government and military were undone by their own heightened sense of self-worth. Receiving constant updates from the guards overseeing my detention, I witnessed the evolution of humanity in real time. Enemies turned into allies. The vast environmental and ideology differences between Earth nations naturally caused confusion among our military. Culturally, humanity was flung generations ahead of the natural curve. In the worst possible scenario for my people, humanity's own self-worth and perception of their reality wasn't just validated, it was undone and reborn. Even when they had lost territories or the casualties skyrocketed, the fact that they were holding on was nothing short of pure insanity. We had shown weakness by not throwing down everything with all our might. We demonstrated that our war machines could be felled. We lost the element of true shock and awe. However, I am uncertain if it would have made a difference in the end. A war projected to be 7 hours had turned into a grueling 7-week endeavor. High-ranking officers were fired or cycled through, making matters significantly worse. While my forces bled, I witnessed the creation of a new norm for the humans. Simultaneously, support for war had deteriorated into protests back home. In the face of hell, the humans still created art and music. Propaganda turned into reality. Heroes of all walks of life were forged. If humanity were to completely make it through, I suspect that their movie industry would be nothing but first-contact war films for decades to come. In the midst of my analysis, a small group of my watchmen came by. The man in charge did not knock, only unlocking the door and stepping to the side. The people with him followed the same pattern, standing to the side at attention and allowing passage for me to exit. Congratulations, Seaman Recruit Balak Skulfadi. You have your rank back. The stress I was used to seeing from that man had calmed. Regret and pain in his eyes had been lessened by my presence. The tiniest smile was on his face. Welcome back, Rear Admiral. What are your orders, sir? When I stepped out of my containment cell, I looked around and saw none of my former peers awaiting me. The enlisted before me were obviously not in the best condition. Their uniforms lacked cleanliness, and their expressions looked like they had returned from a tour in the deepest parts of the underworld. I did not recognize half of them. Without hesitation, I announced, Full retreat. Surrender. Do whatever it takes to preserve the lives of everyone planetside who hasn't been captured. Abandon their gear if they have to. Someone, anyone, get into contact with General Einerson, United States Army. I'm speaking to him personally. All the watchmen scrambled to send the proper messages out, or establish peace talks. Even if I didn't designate specific personnel, they already knew who would do it. I already saw it in their eyes. They were waiting for that order for a long time. For my choice of individual, from what I knew. Einerson went from private all the way up to general, then became the general of the army due to the invasion. Proving his leadership worth during the conflict, especially when he's part of the infamous 50 war tribes, as my fleet called them. I could have contacted anybody. In retrospect, it would have been more efficient to call multiple representatives simultaneously to stop the war. To me, theoretically, interacting with a specific individual would have yielded better results than 100 representatives. I did not doll myself up in a dress uniform. Instead, I went directly to my former office and sat at my computer. I waited. 1,000 thoughts ran through my head. The possibility that this was about to be my last mistake was looming over my shoulder. All of my working knowledge about humanity was about to be put to the sword, even more so since it was someone from the United States. Who knows what could happen? This will be my first time interacting with a human being. With how my government and the entire chain of command has operated thus far, it might be my last. For someone with as much experience as this human, surely he has the experience of fighting his own chain of command more than the enemy. Out of all people, he should understand things that a normal politician or prior enlisted officer do not even conceive of. It took a surprisingly short time for General Einerson to come online. The man looked like he had just crawled out of a hole. Stone-faced, yet his eyes still had light in them. No dress uniform. Instead, he was wearing a messy working uniform. Instead of an office, he was in a tent. The only thing he could sit on was a monoblock chair, and the amount of noise in the air sounded like taunts and celebrations. In the midst of my own anxiety, I threw caution to the solar winds and secretly recorded the conversation. Both of us look like ass, I casually began. The stoic man immediately laughed. His healthy laughter told me everything I needed to know. I made the right choice. If you're new here, welcome aboard. Check out the description for the story, and join the Discord if you like. Consider supporting the channel and the author as well. It's a dangerous world out there, but remember to be brave and look up to seek the stars.